We have a motorcycle shoot coming up in a couple days, and we've got 2 sets of anamorphic lenses that we want to test out. It's the Blazar Remus and the Atlas Mercuries. I own the Mercuries and Kofi owns the Remus, and we want to compare them. Is it worth the price to go with the Mercuries or not? Can they match? It's not going to be a scientific test, but it's going to give you a good idea of kind of which you want to go for, the pros, the cons, and match them up. So, as I mentioned, I'm shooting a commercial for Zero Motorcycles and wanted to shoot everything on the Atlas Mercuries. I absolutely love the look that they produce, and it just so happened that kind of at the same time as I'm shooting bits and pieces of this ad, Kofi came out to Maui to team up, to come on the podcast, and he offered to help me out. And I knew that he had the Blazar Remus lenses, and so I thought it'd be a perfect opportunity to kind of match the two up and do a little comparison. And so we put the lenses through 4 different tests, and that was the overall image and panning to kind of see the distortion on the edges and what it looked like to pan the lens back and forth. Number 2 was the focus breathing. Number 3, got to check out the flares. And then lastly, just being able to see sharpness. Wide open, 2.8, T4, and 5.6. So I thought I would just run through all the different shots, give you a look at all the different images, the comparisons, and then we'll come back after and do kind of a final rundown of the pros and cons of each set of lenses and my overall thoughts on this video. Again, like I said, this isn't a scientific test. I'm not going to be pixel peeping and breaking everything down. This is just my overall general feel of how the lenses did, what I think, and hopefully just give you a better understanding of each of these lenses. And if you're looking at purchasing one or the other, it'll give you a better decision on whichever you go with or none at all. And then for all of these shots, I should say too, I'm going to color correct and grade all of them to look as similar as possible because that's what I want in this motorcycle shoot. So you're not gonna be able to pick out maybe like the Remuses are a little bit warmer than the Mercuries or anything like that, just because I'm trying to grade them all so that they look very similar because that's the need that I have for my project. So first, let's just start with a couple quick specs. The Mercuries have a full frame sensor coverage. They're a 1.5 times anamorphic squeeze. Aperture is the same throughout, starting at T2.2. They have standardized gears and a 95 millimeter front diameter REPL mount. And right now they currently have 6 lenses out: 36, 42, 54, 72, 95, and 138, with apparently a 24 mil and 27 millimeter coming out as well. I currently have the 42 mil and the 95 mil, which weigh in at 2.3 pounds for the 42 and 4.4 pounds for the 95 millimeter. So when it comes to the Blazar Remus, same thing. They're a full frame anamorphic 1.5 times squeeze. They currently have a 33, 35, 45, 50, 65, 85, 100, and 125 millimeter, but they all differ in terms of the aperture, going from T1.6 all the way up to T4. Weight wise, they all range differently as well. The lightest being about half a pound all the way up to about 2 pounds. They all have a filter thread of 77 millimeters and are either PL or EF mounts. You've had a chance to look over all the different shots. Let's run into the pros and cons, starting with the Mercuries. I think the pros for me, I love the look. I love the image. There's an even kind of fall off and distortion throughout the lens. You're not getting crazy weirdness on the edges. And it's sharp pretty much through and through. Even at T2.2, like this is definitely usable and looks great. Like when you think of a classic anamorphic look, this is what you're getting. And I love that they've definitely toned down the chromatic aberration from the Orion series. I think that was kind of my biggest gripe with those lenses. The image looked awesome, but me personally, I hate chromatic aberration, and those had it. So the Mercuries have definitely cleaned that up and taken that out for the most part. Pro number two, I just love the flares. They're crazy, they're insane. When you are looking directly at the sun or directly at a bright light source, like this thing is flaring wildly. I personally like it. Some of you may absolutely hate it. I think this is the cool part about lenses. I mean, it's kind of like ice cream. Some people love chocolate, some people love vanilla. You know, it is what it is. And you go with and you pick whatever you think works best for your project or the image that you're trying to create. I love these flares. Lastly, the build quality on these is just fantastic. These will last forever. I'm not gonna come out with any issues while shooting on these lenses. They are little tanks. I know that's a phrase that's used all the time, but I think it really applies to these lenses. Like they are built so well. But with everything that is great also comes some cons, and I think the two biggest cons were shipping time and price. Now the ship time, I mean, it took forever to get these lenses. It was well over a year to be able to receive them. And then the price now is at $8,000. Like that is a lot of money for one lens. I bought it on the pre-order price, which I think was around $5,000 per lens, but still $5,000 for a lens is a ton of money. That's a big investment into a lens. The only other issue that I had with these lenses was just the weight. The 42 isn't too bad. I can put it on the gimbal, I can shoot it handheld, not really a problem at all. The 95 millimeter, I couldn't really fit on my gimbal. I couldn't get the camera to go back all the way to properly balance everything just because the 95 was so big and so long. Now I can use other things like my Easy Rig or SAC camera bag saddle, stuff like that to balance it and shoot handheld, and that's totally fine, and that's what I'm going to be doing. But if you are looking to put this on a very small run and gun kind of gimbal setup, you're probably not going to be able to do that with those longer Mercury focal lengths. Now, jumping over to the Blazar Remus lenses, the pros, just going against exactly what I said, these are super lightweight. These are all very small, all lightweight, including the 100mm. It could easily fit on the gimbal, and Kofi was shooting that out the back of the truck while I was on the motorcycle with no problem. And then obviously the affordability. You can get the 45, 65, and 100mm for $2,800 on B&H. I'll link it down below. But that's insane. You can get 3 lenses for less than the price of one Mercury. That's pretty dang good. The other pro is that they matched pretty well with the Mercuries. You can make these lenses, which are more affordable or cheaper, to match or look similar to something that is more expensive. And then lastly, image quality. I think if you're gonna say like best bang for your buck, like this is it. To get a lens, some of them are under $1,000. That's pretty great for a good looking anamorphic image. In the center, everything is sharp, it looks good, and yeah, overall, the image quality is pretty good. But again, getting into the cons, because I mentioned how much I love the crazy flaring on the Mercuries, the flaring for these is pretty neutral. When I pick a lens, I want to pick a lens for certain character qualities, and with an anamorphic lens, like I want crazy flaring. And this one just kind of has a very neutral or small flare. So again, that might be a reason for you to get these. Maybe you don't want a crazy wild flare. Totally okay, and I totally understand that. But for me, I'm putting that in the cons for this lens. Next, looking at the kind of comparison side by side, and you can really see it with the trees. The distortion is weird, and I'll point this out in the image. It's like there's these two kind of concave distortion-like things. I know I'm not using any technical terms here, but there's these like two concave distortion effects that happen at the edge of each side of the lens. So not only do you get the pincushion look, which is fine, and that's in every anamorphic lens for the most part, but you're also getting this weird concave distortion at the edge too. And I'm not a fan of that at all. Like, I want that anamorphic kind of distortion look, but not in that way. And I think, which is the next con, it really shows up when you pan the camera back and forth. You get this weird kind of warpy, wobbly look. Again, I don't know how else to describe it, but I think that's because of that concave effect on each side that you're getting that weird distortion when you're panning. That means that you can kind of only use these lenses if you're keeping your subject center frame or just not doing too much panning at all, which is fine, and I think you can definitely use that in a lot of different situations. But I don't know, let me know what you think, if that's a make or a break for you. I think in conclusion, I am obviously very biased. I own the Mercuries. I paid for them. I love these lenses. So is it worth it for me? Well, yeah, because I bought them. It was worth it for me. It might not be worth it for you to pay, if you didn't get on the pre-order, now $8,000 a lens. And that's totally understandable. $8,000 is insane. That's a lot of money for one lens. And so getting the next best thing, which might be the Remus lenses, is a great option. I think if you have the budget, or if you're able to rent these lenses, I would go with the Mercuries every time. If you're looking to own now because you can't get in on that pre-order price, I would go with the Remus lenses. So that's just kind of my take. If you can afford the Mercuries, and that's okay, go with the Mercuries. I think they are the better lens. I think that's easy to see. But if you're factoring in the price and you want to own some, those Remus lenses are looking pretty good. But let me know, again, your thoughts. I would love to hear from you. Which do you prefer? Which would you want to own or do own? Which should you go with? I'd love to hear from you. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.